Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Sunday Sessions. It's 7th of March, 2021. Well, thank you for joining me for our weekly time of exploring nature centered folklore, connecting this within your favorite sanctuary space, and expressing inspired visions from your sanctuary through your poetry, writing, art, craft, performance, and problem solving. Now, today's Sunday session is the first of our March tree themes sessions, and this is going to be a bare root tree planting. And there's a sort of picture of it, not the fitting to the screen. I'll explain that to you why in a moment. And well, really, this is the season that most people may be planting their trees. And I'd like to hear your stories on that. Excuse me while I take a second to get my breath back. It's been non-stop tech issues from last night through this morning, and I almost cancelled. We just got on just got on now by a sort of hairbreadth. So glad to actually be online with you. I hope we stay online. It's going to be a very thin session. I'm not going to have the photos and videos like I normally have. So I hope the carrying of my voice will be able to stimulate you through this session. I didn't get the time to prepare the work and include them. Uh, there's a couple of guests that I've moved to next week. There were people that sent me quite a lot of content, but they sent it late last night through this morning. And because I haven't been feeling too good for a couple of days, plus the tech issues, it was just too late to include. So if you are for any of these sessions submitting photos, videos, um, please try and make it by noon on the Saturday, and I'll be able to edit them and fit them in. So apologies to those who sent stuff in, but next week we'll feature them because it's going to be a continuation of what I'm going to be covering just now, because there's a few things I've had to cut out to thin this down a bit. So I had to move on a bit here, and yes, I am having a tech issue. Here we go. Uh, I'm also, as I say, thin on the photos. I trust you're going to find this show interesting anyway. And let me know about your tree planting, bare root planting, especially if you're doing this. And I hope you do actually go away after the show, as thin as it might be, with some lovely practical and imaginative ideas. Um, and maybe some stories to tell as well. Now, the topics that I'm going to skim over today include tree folklore that's connected to the tree planting, of course, being the Carrow Crawley Sunday sessions, what it is. I can't just give you a demonstration of throwing a tree into the ground. There's got to be the folklore with it as well, doesn't there? And I'm going to be planting a hazel tree as a demonstration. Hazel for the wisdom and symbolic of that. So I'll talk about that a bit later. So I'm going to talk a bit about also, and we're going to cover this, I think, a lot more next week, is the Woodland League's Forest in a Box. And there's a bit of a picture for that. I'm going to tell you what that is. It's a lovely project, and it's something, if you're not living in Ireland, you can adapt to it once you see the idea of it. And I will have a panel session at the end, and I haven't got anybody on the panel live, but please, it's a question and answer session. So make that energetic, and I look forward to your questions and answers about that. But first, let's see, there's a few of you have actually come on board, which is lovely to see. Thank you. And there's Teresa Ross listening from Southeast London. Lovely. Welcome here, Teresa. And Elizabeth Flynn from County Wexford. Our regular Donna Johnson is here. Good morning to you. And Sherry as well from Maine. Lovely. Lynn Gallagher. Hi there. Oh, I don't know where you're from. You can say as well. That'd be great. And Sharon from London. So we got quite a UK crowd here. I think, Lynn, I think you're from Meetup, aren't you? Coming in from the YouTube there. Thank you very much, all of you for joining this. And as I was saying earlier, this is going to be a bit of a thin production compared to what I normally do. But let's get on with the flow of it, and I'm trust you will enjoy some stuff. Now, these category sessions, I do this announcement, and the Labyrinth Gardens, they're brought to you largely by our patron subscribers. And these days, because of the subscriptions I got to pay, if it wasn't for the support of them, and some of you are watching today, I wouldn't be able to put this on. Anyway, so as thin as it might be today. So there you are for the Patreon. If you'd like just a dollar pound or a euro or more, of course, a month. And eventually I'm going to get the course off to you, and you'll have free access to that, which is a lot of the background stuff to these Sunday sessions. It's the She, Water and Tree Folklore course. So thank you, as I say again, for your constant support. And now I can kind of check on with this. There's a couple more people have come on board as well. It might be thin but nourishing, I bet. Oh, that's very nice of you, Elizabeth. and uh, and then we got Lawrence O'Gorman from Dublin. Well, thanks for coming for being on board here, Lawrence. Great, thank you. So, right, let's get moving. Let me start with the intent of this session. I'm going to be including tree planting and tips, and along with a bit of tree folklore. But this is a lead in really for two things. First is to promote more personal connection to our trees, woodlands, and forests. And this starts with more of awareness of the declining native tree woodlands and hedges around us. This is quite a serious problem in Ireland, but we go to England and there's a problem there. So, various countries there are. Scotland has made some wonderful headway. I'm going to talk a little bit about one charity that's done phenomenal work with that a bit later on. But let's think about the small things that we can do about this. And there are some wonderful small things we can do. And you'll find after this week, the next two Sunday sessions, I'm going to go more into this and we're going to have more guests. So this is what the next three sessions are going to be about. So this is really a bit of an outline today to get you into the psyche of it all, I suppose. And we can all be the acorns that become the future oaks. There's a nice phrase for you. And this includes being hands on in the actual planting of trees and caring for the existing trees that you may have in your yard, your garden, your little woodland sanctuary, or a little local neighborhood, local woodland that you've got. And of course, it's not just about the trees, it's about the biodiversity that's all around them. And I think it was last week I was talking about the talking of everything underground. I bring this up in Sunday sessions quite a bit. And you've probably read a lot of stuff and seen videos of how all life, all that biodiversity under the ground is communicating. And it's because of the support that we get stuff that come up on the surface and compete for the light. Now, this connection is also guided by human connections that were once founded by the Brehon laws of Ireland, worth studying. I'm not going to talk much about the Brehon today, other sessions I do. Uh, but the Brehon laws was once the community ways of living. And it was actually inspired by the developed folklore along with connection to the trees and woodland. And I feel that since medieval times, I would say, it's been clouded by our replacement diversive or divisive systems and culture, where now we have courts, judgments, blames, and punishments, very different to how the Brehon laws work. So many of us now, and I think we so take it for granted, but we know it's there, is we're psychically tree people without a forest. Um, and Ted Cook is one that mentions that quite a bit. I'm going to talk about him a little bit as well. Now, the second purpose today, I feel, is a lead in to next week when we'll share ideas for our personal sanctuaries and even a tree labyrinth. I'm in the center of I'm in the willow cairn in the center of the tree labyrinth here. And we'll talk about yours and the ones you've got existing, and even thoughts for planning and starting your own. It's not too late, but it's from a small place like this that we can start to return our connection. And well, like with most things, start very small, be the acorn, and you can be very passionate. It's not overwhelming. And and within a sanctuary like this, I feel that we can follow a more balanced, colourful, stress-reduced, and forgiving lifestyle, which is what we deserve, rather than that judgment culture. And was it Claire was talking about the cancel culture? I haven't really looked into it, but there's this whole buzzword of cancel culture. I think we need to get that out of our lives. If there was brown law, there's no cancelling; it's mediation. Anyway, I'm going off onto philosophy now. Let's think about planting trees. The tree planting season is traditionally Samhain to Imbolc, which is early November to early February, and that's here in the Northern Hemisphere. And this is known as the dormant season during the tree cycle. In fact, it's through all life cycle. But us humans, of course, we're usually last minute with things, and and that's me inclusive. So the bulk of the seasonal tree planting tends to get done not between early November and early February, but towards late February and through March. And even Irish Tree Week is starting 21st of March this year, and that has tree planting demonstrations too. And that's going to be celebrated online this year. But I believe even then there's going to be some outdoor planting videos and live outdoor planting with mask and distancing and all that stuff. But yeah, you can't actually be present. It's just being online. But at least there's going to be a tree week session, which is nice. And really, with tree planting in Ireland, you could get away with it until about mid-April. There will be budding. I've got hazels budding here. The orders are starting. The willows are slow. In here, usually this time we start getting buds and a little bit of green, but not this year. Now, bare root tree planting means buying and planting trees without being supplied in soil and pots. You just get them with the roots. Sometimes there's a plastic bag with an elastic band to keep them damp. Uh, Otherwise, when you actually get them from the nursery, they're in water or they're in very damp soil. But now you can't go to the nursery. You've got to have the stuff delivered. And so you just hope they put them in something and the courier gets here quickly. And the moment you've got them, throw them in a bucket of water. Um, but getting bare root trees is cheaper, it's lighter, and to me, it's the best way of getting trees. It's the best way to get them established, and it's certainly a lot less cumbersome than having pots. And commercial tree planting, that's done with bare root plants, often known as whips. And you have them in the bag, as if any of you have been tree planting out, and then you got your sharp spade, and off you go. But first, a bit of tree folklore that's connected with planting. I need a little bit of a drink here. I'm not going to go through all the trees. I did mention I've got my junky version of my book. There it is. I've got the Oma Tale of the Trees. Let's see, where's the camera? There you go. I brought that up. That's my Bane in the Phase breath. It's got the Oma Tale of the Trees at the end. Loads of folklore, but I'm just going to talk a couple of trees just now. And I think everybody has heard of the saying, knock on wood, even if it's only listening to the Stax Folk soul singer, Eddie Floyd. And if has anybody got that single still? There you go. One of the Stax famous Stax singles, anyway. And I think many of us say that knock on wood is a habit without thinking what it may mean. It's something we say when we're looking for good luck or things to actually work out for us. In fact, I should have been knocking on all of the trees here during the challenges of yesterday and this morning. Well, I was certainly leaning on wood. Maybe it did help. But it really is all about knock on wood, hoping something will go well. Now, it's a phrase that probably goes back thousands of years, and it's said in many languages around the world in various ways. We may think our internet service is more important than trees around us these days. Uh, but if we think about it, and if we remind ourselves that trees provide materials for construction, shelter, fire, food, medicine, think more about the benefits, and we might start being of awe of our trees from the planting through to their growing. Now, some people think that knock on wood came here from a Saxon translation, or it arrived even earlier with the Milesians, who became the Gaels. Knock on wood from old sort of Gaelic, if I can remember it, is knock on fear, or in Scotland, knock on fuck, or knock on fiach, something like that. Depends on which island you get on. But knock on fiach, knock on wood. Um, Wherever the origin of knock on wood, though, the folklore is always similar. Knock on wood being the calling on the protection from tree spirits that live in the trees, that some of us may call the she, fairies, ancestors, or the goddess. And some logical thinkers believe that the presence in the trees was inspired by noises as they move about in the wind. We haven't got any wind today, fortunately. It's just a gentle breeze from the southwest. But for many people, touching a tree, never mind knocking on it, but just touching it, and especially hugging a tree, serves a safe and deep rooted protected feeling, doesn't it? You can write comments about your tree hugging experiences and the good luck and wonderful things that happen to you afterwards. But it's always as if the tree brings back to us a collective memory that we call folklore. Um, there's one phrase I saw a meme, and I'm going to try and bring it. I think it's quite a thing. I love this. This is worth reading. There you go. If plants say the trees are farming us and giving us oxygen until we decompose, and then they consume us. So the trees are in charge there. Very appropriate meme. I think most people feel a sort of holiness with oaks, just like the visiting of a holy well. And when we stand before, touch, and hug an oak in reverence, respect, or and a passionate feeling, we get this passionate feeling, I think, from oaks of strength and protection. Their taproot, it goes way down deep. And even in the gales of the wind, you think it's going to crack and fall. Some of you might be familiar with my own Joe the Oak poem where I talk about this and how the tree holds on. And it's quite a lesson about our own courage and stickability. Anyway, maybe we bounce off the stories of the Druids and their sacred oak groves. And when we think of Druids, we may think of magic. So we may think then that oaks being the containers of that magic too. And that's we think, well, that's where the Druid or the Druids, that's where they get their magic from the oaks. And now a known healing use of oaks from the ancient past is tapping the sap water from oaks. If you do that, it's known as an excellent healer for external wounds, and it neutralizes poisons from insects. I'm not sure if it's effective against adders or snakes, but certainly effective if you fall over, grazes, even wounds, because you're not going to get comfrey around everywhere. Oaks, the tanning, the water with the tannins from the oaks will do that for you. And also bringing down fever. Suppose you get an infection with fever. That's water with the tannin from the oaks is great for that. So, as I say, the magic there is the tannins in the oak. And we're familiar with the oak tannins being used for leather. And it's also famous for creating the aging flavor in wines because of wines being kept in the oak casks. Now, there are white oaks and there are red oaks. And white oaks are the most common that we have here that are native in Ireland. We have our own Cecil oak. And then there is many of the imported pedunculate oak of England and also around Europe, Germany, for instance. And these white oaks, they actually provide more of this sap or this water, the tannin, than the red oaks do. So it seems we've got them, they're healing oaks. We really do have them here. And because they are so healing, the white oak, druids seem to, they're in whites, although some people say it's due to the mistletoe. but we think of the white and the oak being of extreme reverence. And while that's all beautiful, these white oaks can unfortunately grow too big for most gardens. And they do cast when you let them mature, once they're over 10, 15, or 20-year old. They cast a huge amount of shade, but that doesn't really get serious until the oak's 20 years old. You can actually coppice an oak after about 10 years. And I believe in coppicing as a woodland manager. And, it is ethical. You get extra trunks, but that's amazing actually for the wildlife. Now, my personal favorite are all oaks, and sorry I didn't get pictures up of this because I got lovely ones in the tree labyrinth here. That is for the northern red oak, and in the leaves are not out yet, but during the summer, they are the brightest of green of the trees here. And then in autumn, they change into a stunning maroon color. And the whole tree is just a carpet maroon of this red leaf color. A lot of you in the USA is quite a common sight, especially up the northeast, and I'm sure some of you be able to make comments on that. And they stay that maroon for quite a while until they actually go a lovely copper brown. And those leaves, where all the other leaves drop, they seem to hang on, and they're here with us all winter. Beautiful tree all round. Now, another tree, another one of my favorites to consider is the rowan. Now, unfortunately, I've not had great success in this labyrinth garden here. There's other parts of the garden at the back. We've got an overgrown hedge at the back, a couple of other places. There are rowans that are growing quite well amongst that. But the ones I got here, I had a row, and sometimes we get deer in here, and the only trees that the deer would attack were the rowans. If they're in the forest anywhere else, they'll eat anything, especially the oaks. For some reason, in this tree labyrinth, it's the rowans they go for. And there'll be one night, it's usually in spring, that they come in and they munch them and off they go. But as I say, we got two or three, so it's a balance of nature. They leave what we need, I suppose. Now, in folklore, rowans always believed to be the presence of good, along with the calling upon for the presence of the earth goddess. I've gone into detail with this with the Sunday sessions, especially the Swan ones of the men in court circles calling on for the presence of the goddess by burning rowan sticks. Now, but another thing I probably haven't mentioned is children's cradles. They used to be made out of rowan wood, and even onto the first bed when they're toddlers. And this is due to the belief that the rowan draws protection from either the Earth Mother, from the she, or the angels, and also, and you've probably heard this one, to prevent the baby or the young child, especially if it's a boy, becoming a stolen child, taken away by the fairy trickery. And there's also a tradition that a rowan close to your front door, but not too close, otherwise it'll damage the foundations. But have one fairly close, and it's said to be a great way of warning off disturbing visitors that may try and visit you, uh, or even the unseen disturbing visitors. I'm reluctant to use that E word. So it's intriguing how most rowan trees have struggled here in this tree labyrinth of Carrowcrory, though, as I say, we have a couple of beauties. Perhaps that's all we need for the protection. We got all these other trees. We've got the oaks, we've got the ash, horse chestnut, poplar, beeches, birches, hawthorns, of course. So we're not pretty deprived. Anyway, it's intriguing. Rowans are perhaps the least fussiest trees with soils. So what's happening here? They seem to tolerate anything, any type of soil, even the extreme damp soil, dry soil, droughted soil, and even any frost conditions that's thrown at it. And there's many beautiful cultivars which are garden worthy, which are not grown because they're too big for the average pot. Now, one more tree I'm going to talk about is elder. And like with hawthorn and blackthorn, elder is one a tree to treat with respect. Now, there's many legends about the spirits of former witches that were on Earth, that their spirits are now living in elder trees. But they're said to be sensitive. And if you treat an elder well, Um, no need of don't do any needless knocking on wood, for instance. But if you treat the tree with respect, there's another folklore belief that the elder will also be protective, but be sensitive. And there's a belief that you never start a fire with the elder twigs. Otherwise, the resident twig within the elder tree they came from uh, would be furious. And unlike the rowan, never plant an elder near your front door because it's said that the witch spirits living in there, at the first opportunity, the door's open, they would jump out, jump into your home, and take over your home and be constant mischief in your home. Never mind about Mercury retrograde, it'd be permanent. So treat elder trees right and without intrusion, and the resident witch spirits, that'll ensure that you'll be supplied with lots of elderflowers and lots of berries, and that's what will protect you and give good health. Anyway, after that babble, let's see what you, what you have to say about all that. Um, there we go. Bayer, yeah, sorry. I know you were one of the people that sent an inclusion. I'm going to look at it. We'll probably put that in next week. Thank you. And Elizabeth is saying, hello, Bayer. There you go. More Bayer. There's Bayer again with another comment. I did a wee video of me planting trees this morning. Sorry, because of the tech, as I say, I had tech issues um, yesterday and today. And also, unfortunately, through today, the setting up takes time, the final editing takes time. And when there's a video, there's usually, I have to reformat it in some way. It's very rarely do I get a video that can just slip in to the stream. A lot of people send, for instance, they send in uh, their videos in portrait rather than landscape, so I got messed with that. Also, most people send videos in the MOV format. I've got to change that to MP4, so stuff like that. But we will include it next week because it's going to include a bit more tree planting. So sorry about that, Bear, that we couldn't, because that would have been lovely. And Chinese proverb here: the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. Plenty of memes on that, but that is, we can't say that one too often, can we, Sherry? A daily reminder is perfectly okay with that one. Fabulous. Claire's on board. Hello, Claire. Claire, lovely to see and hear you, John, and learn about planting. Claire's been a savior here. I'm going to have to do a video maybe for next week as well. I'll include it because I haven't been able to do the spring maintenance on the labyrinth gardens. So Claire's done it, pretty much done it all this year. So I'll have to do a video of her work because it's really fabulous and we got it done in record time. All the sort of spring stuff we have to do here as a maintenance. And I'm going to talk about doing that with your sanctuary next week. So thank you, Claire. I'm glad you're listening. And our respect for to when we put the emphasis on the economy rather than the environment. There's a lot to be said for that as well. A different culture. Margie, looking forward to hearing about tree planting. Planted some native fields trees over the years. Only some of them have survived. The deer, yeah, that is the problem. Uh, I'm going to say a little bit about that. I hope I'll have more video and photographs to talk about the deer issue. And then, of course, with you, Margie, you're right on the edge of the Loch Key Forest Park. Huge population of deer that's going to munch whatever they can. And of course, they'll go to people's houses to and their yards and gardens to do munching rather than the forest, the buggers. Sandra Elizabeth, good morning. I think I've covered you all for now. So thank you all for. Oh, what's this one? Must be new. We had a customer in the garden centre. Oh, you're in the garden centre. Lovely. He was almost fainting with terror. He had some work done. A rowan tree had been badly damaged, and so it was yanked out by a worker. So it was down. He wanted a rowan immediately. No messing. Through. Oh, well, there's someone who really understands his rowan, isn't it? Well, he was terrified that he wasn't protected from fire as a result of the old road. As far as fire protection, as I say, I'm not covering all trees, but the one great tree in folklore for fire protection, especially lightning, is the holly tree. Very slow grower, isn't it? Though, well, often the holly takes 7 years to grow an inch, but that's something to consider. So I think let's move on. I think I'm going to plant a tree next. So this is where the tech stuff gets planted. I tried to make a video of me planting a hazel tree, and because of all the stuff that went on yesterday, I never got it made. Never got it made this morning. So I'm going to have to try and do this live for you right now. So let's try and have a go at this. Let's make the arrangements as needed. Um, right. Great. So I've got a few gaps in this tree labyrinth here, and I decided I'm going to fill them with hazels because I don't think there's enough hazels, not enough hazelnuts in Ireland. So I'm on a little bit of a campaign of more hazels because when I lived in the Inner Hebrides and around Scotland, Argyll especially, and I think Ross and Cromarty, well, Ross anyway, there's hedges of hazels everywhere, and it's wonderful in the fall, in the autumn. You can just go along the hedgerows and pick hazels there, and then there's still plenty for the wildlife. The abundance is incredible. Well, I think we need that in Ireland as well. Now, before the show, I tried the gaps where I wanted the hawthorns. Two had big boulders in them because I was digging down. I was trying to dig a hole in advance, so you don't watch me trying to dig a hole on this session. But there were these big boulders, and I wasn't feeling great. Oh no, leave them alone. Got to the third place. What do I find? Plywood buried underneath. I thought, well, out of the evils, the plywood might be easier to remove. So I've removed some of that. So anyway, I'm going to go off now and plant a hazel tree. But before that, let's think about hazel again. The mythology, the wood of wisdom, and there's a story that there was 9 hazel trees in the time of the Tour de Don and the source of the Boyne River near Carbery, County Kildare. And they said that these 9 hazels provided the people of Eriu their source of wisdom, that somehow it spread across this whole island. And there are better known stories about, of course, you'll know about the salmon of knowledge. That gets linked to the Boyne as well as the Shannon, the Shannon, and the story there from the Shannon pot, very similar. The Shannon picking the hazels there. So hazel was at the source of river, the source of wisdom, and from there, the salmon eating the nuts, flowing down the river, and this time it's salmon of knowledge, not salmon of wisdom. And there's so the because the hazelnuts have been eaten, there's sometimes hazelnuts still at wells. More often it's hawthorns, isn't it, these days? But I'm going to talk about the differences between wisdom and knowledge during trees in water. That's going to be a Sunday session at the end of the month, 28th of March. So I'll talk about that more about the trees at the sources of rivers and also at wells. So let's plant a wisdom inspiring hazel tree. So let's see. I'm going to have to set this up so you don't so you don't get some echo because I'm going off to another computer, another camera sort of thing. So I think I've got to get rid of this, get rid of me here, and so you'll have the background for a while. I'm just thinking I'm supposed to be doing this. I was going to have a sort of a transition video, but I never got that done. So I'm going to take me away and enjoy the scene for a minute or two in silence. Think about your wisdom, and I'll switch on from the other. Can you hear me? Can you hear me there? I was having a sorry it took a while. It took me a while to actually get the audio. Hello. I'm back. Make sure I've got audio. Uh, can you hear me now? uh, right. How's the audio doing? Uh, hi, Big Bear. Yeah, you probably came in after I said that. I don't know what happened there. I've had tech headaches, as I say. Did a test about half hour before. Audio was fantastic over there, but somehow it got lost. Anyway, I'll tell you a bit about what I was doing there. Um, I was going to recite the Cola Hazel, but I think my poem of that, but I think you've heard that so many times and time's getting on. Uh, I'll explain a bit about what I was doing there. And there's a few tips about planting too. Now, as I was mentioning earlier, don't let the bare root, uh, don't let those roots go dry. If delivered by the courier, unpack immediately, put into a bucket of water if drying out. But if it's going to be a few days before you plant out, notice I had a pot there. The first pot was compost, mix of soil and compost that's matured a while. I think that's been maturing for a couple of years. And just pot up the plants. And then when you're about to plant out, you can pull them back out of the pot, use that pot for something else. Maybe you're going to pour that compost back into your hole. Your own common sense will work that one out. The compost there, it was first thing I put in to surround the roots. If your bare root plant is now, notice that one. There was one thing I missed out. That bare root hazel was well grown. It was well over 3 feet, and usually for that height, you need a stake. And you actually put the stake into the ground. And if the audio had been working, I would have moved the camera around and shown you another tree. I've got a Japanese weeping willow that actually does have a stake on it. So I wanted to use that as a demonstration, and perhaps I'll use photos next week. But put that stake in before you plant the tree so you don't damage the root ball. But obviously, plant your tree before actually trying to. Don't tie your tree plant to the stake before you actually planted it. It seems an obvious thing, but maybe there's something someone might do, and it's something I might have done in the past. I'm not sure. Anyway, get that stake in first, then plant your tree. Don't worry about bringing them together just yet. Fill the hole with solid and stuff, compost, and well above where the roots came out of the trunk. I suppose you might have noticed that where the top roots were coming into the trunk, I filled up with the compost and soil mix, and then the soil that I'd taken out, which was pretty good quality. You might have noticed, put that on top, and so it went up to above. And what I didn't do, because I thought it was nourishing enough, but you could add mature chicken poop, dried blood, bone meal, or whatever you've got around you. Make sure none of that stuff is too fresh, but none of that is essential. And if you do put any kind of feed like that, don't put too much on. You don't need it. Trees are very good at sending their own roots down to and across for hunting out their own feed, mineral feed. That's one thing trees are very good at, is hunting and feeding themselves by breaking down minerals out of the soil. They'll find it. Doesn't matter if it's rocky, clay, whatever. The trees will do it. So the best thing is to actually encourage the tap roots to go down. That's the best thing to do. If you feed them too much, then you might encourage the side roots to go sideways, and that could cause your tree plant to be fragile in a wind. I think that using tree fertilizers is, there's artificial fertilizers used in forestry plantations. I don't see the sense of it. It's absolute nonsense, because there's been healthy forests for millions of years before the creation of human made fertilizers. I think it's just a money thing. So put in your soil and compost, ferment with your shoe like I did, keep the plant standing firm. And when rain comes along, that'll firm it up even more. Um, if you find that your planted tree starts leaning over, where I put it, it's not going to really be affected by the winds that we get here. It's well protected there. But if you find they do lean over, somehow there is a storm, and I've had that here in the tree labyrinth, they start leaning over, or the soil gets very waterlogged. If we get several days of rain here non-stop, it can get waterlogged and it loosens the roots and they start falling. So these are situations when you may need to put a stake in later. And So be careful. You got to take the chance then. Now, regarding trees, you got trees and the stake and bringing them together. And I had hoped to show you on a picture, but you're probably familiar with them. Those adjustable rubber ties. A lot of people think, oh, that's not very eco, and they might not like the look of them. Fair enough. I'm going to talk about that in a moment. But I do find them convenient for a while. I don't leave them on for long. Once a tree has matured over 3 to 5 years and it's got its own strength, I take it all away. And maybe on apple trees, I'll hold it a bit. But they're great because you can adjust them, and so you're not strangling the tree. And if you find you're putting a stake in later and you don't want to upset the root ball and you've got the stake quite away from the tree, they are flexible. And sometimes I've joined two together to hold the stake up. Again, common sense stuff. Um, Another concern, some people think, well, those rubber tires they'll fall down with the shaking about. For me, that hasn't happened. Um, but what a lot of people do, you go into forestries. Some people are quite keen that with those rubber adjustables, they'd stick a nail through the rubber into the stakes, not the tree, of course, into the stake. But I've never done that. I don't find slipping is a problem with them. Now, if you don't like those rubber adjustables, use any plant-based thick string, hemp, sisal, narrow, either thick string or narrow rope, both good. And with these, and also the rubber ties, check them often to make sure that they're not cutting into the tree. Very important. One other tip: if your bare root plant is more than 6 feet or 2 meters high, very few people do this with bare roots. But if you do happen to get a large one, excuse me, also bury a perforated piece of hose pipe. So you got the stake, the hose pipe, and the tree all getting buried there. Reason for that is to, to be able to water deep down to your taproot when there's drought conditions. People in California, that could be very important. Um, but after about 3 years, you can pull the pipe out as the tree will be able to sort out its own hunt for water as well. You can, as I say, I had some bark mulch there. You can have leaf mulch, bark mulch. Uh, Put it over the top. It keeps the water in. Insects like it. We got frogs around here. They like to actually shelter under that as well. And a lot of creatures do that. So, as well as preserving the water down below, it's very good for the biodiversity as well to have some mulch down. And in a way, it's sort of impersonating a little bit the forest floor. Because we start with around here, we do get a bit of drought conditions starting from about mid-April, May, and June in Ireland, and then boom, the rain starts coming in July. So it's a very good time to check your ties and any stakes between now and July. But really, check at least 4 times a year. Weeding. Some of these trees around here, you might have seen from the videos, had sort of weeds and grass. Uh, I would say pull away the major competition like rushes, couch grass, and similar. Anything within 3 feet, within a meter, pull it away for the first 3 to 5 years. After 5 years, it's definitely not critical unless something is very severe like the couch grass. Just keep an eye on it. But after 5 years, you can just let everything be natural. Also, keep checking for broken and dead branches and prune back if needed. You can paint with organic sealant that gives extra protection. Keep checking for drought and dry soil, as I say, May and June, and water if needed during that dry time. But and we're going to talk about this a lot more next week and the week after. Relax and sit with your trees when you can and connect with them through all seasons. And surely that's the most important personal purpose of planting, aside from carbon sequestration and this extra oxygen that they're going to give out. So, what about some advice of what trees to plant and where? You'll notice there that I put the hazel. It was quite close to other trees. I do that. This is a tree labyrinth, and one thing with hazel, with alder, with willows, you can plant them close together. With oaks, that could be a problem eventually. Same with ash, but we can do that, and that's lovely. One of the things when you got those trees together, the amount of oxygen they give out can be more than a singular oak. So that's something you can do. That's why they're great hedging plants as well. So if your land is boggy, as it was here, the top priority is the alder and willow. And birches can be planted. And not long after we put those in, add the hawthorn, blackthorn, rowan, and poplar. Now, if you're near the coast, you can also, or by a large loch, a large lake, you can also add strawberry tree. That's native to Ireland. Holly, white beam, they're good in a near water situation. Also, sycamore, that's an import, very useful. Home oak with those beautiful, not regular oak leaves, there's sort of almost like an ash leaf. They're lovely. Sweet chestnut is another one that's great by the loch side as well. They grow well. Now, if your planting site is cold and the soil never seems to warm up, birch, hawthorn, poplar, oak, ash, juniper was once a native here. Pines, very good for that. Hazel and beech too. I wish I had the photos, but we'll talk about that another time. Now, also, if it's cold, you could add sycamore, lime, larch, and cedar. They'll all grow okay in a cold soil. Now, if your soil's shallow and very stony, like it is here, birch, hawthorn, rowan, crabapple, cherry, white beam, hornbeam, horse chestnut, beech, pines, hazel, all of those will work in a shallow soil because they'll weave themselves around the stones. As I say, there was a bit of plywood in there. That's not going to be a problem to that hazel there. It will get through there. So again, that was if you're stony, birch, hawthorn, rowan, crabapple, cherry, white beam, hornbeam, horse chestnut, beech, pines, hazel. Now, if it's heavy clay soils, and some people in the week were talking to me about this, alder and willows definitely again. Birch, holly's good in clay. Hawthorn, blackthorn, the crab apples again, and hazel. So you can get quite a bit of nourishment from your clay there. Now, if you're in a confined space, you've got small garden, small yard, you haven't got much space to put in trees. Best trees maybe is birch, beech, hawthorn, alder, willow, hornbeam, cherry, and hazel. All of those you can keep small. You can coppice them a bit, pollard them. You might have noticed where I was. Some of the willows have been pollarded. They look as if they've been had a serious haircut. But you wait, if I show those in about 6 weeks' time, they'll be like lovely balls of leaf. They'll be fantastic. It's amazing how quickly that comes together. Now, if you've got light sandy soil, there's not much of that in Ireland, but good for the sandy soil is the birch, pines, and then the major trees, the oak, ashes, and elm, and also the hazel, the chieftain trees. They're all great in the sandy soil. But you can add more tree species with your own experience. So let me see what you're saying on this. And amazing, time has flown past. Wow. So what's this? Bears got old socks, cut them in strips. Oh yeah, I've seen that. That's a great tie. Yes, wonderful. Yes, especially those socks that come out the washing machine where you put two in and only one comes out. There's your tree ties. More than you can handle. Amazing. Bicycle tires. There's another one. Use up old inner tubes of bicycle tires. There we go. Upcycle. Way to go. Um, and Elizabeth, yay. Here, loud and clear. That was just when I was actually yapping away and miming. You get the idea. Very good. Hazel in its nest, earlier, Claire was saying. So, right. Can you drink sap from the Himalayan? Where are we going? Oh, yeah, you certainly can. It comes out very watery. It's worth actually putting it on a low heat the way that you actually make a sauce, French style. Turn it into a syrup, make it into a reduction. Very precious. You don't get as much as from a maple, of course. It's less than a quarter of what you get from the maple, but the water itself is pretty good as well. Yeah, go. Oh, Himalayan. That's another one that's very good for a limited space, and it's very hardy. It's a lovely tree. I don't think we got any here. I've always promised myself to get some. So thanks for that, Sherry. It's a great import tree to have. I think we caught up anyway, and I've been on nearly an hour already, and there was a couple of things I want to chat about. I was going to talk a bit about Tech Cook, but I'll leave to next week. The Woodland League Forest in a Box. And here's something I'm going to talk about over the next couple of weeks. I've got some photos up for that at least. So let's, since I got these photos up, let's start talking about this a bit. As I say, Forest in a Box, created by the Woodland League. And I hope to attract Andrew St. Ledger to explain this lovely Woodland League project to us on one of the Sunday sessions, maybe next week or the week after. See how it's tied up for Tree Week. And there he is with some school children. They're assembling their forest in a box. And his inspiration for this was inspired by a film called Call of the Forest. If you've been here visiting, you might have seen it, or elsewhere it's been going around Ireland. It's Call of the Forest, directed, presented, and produced by Diana Beresford Kruger. And Andrew Ledger is in a section of that film, of that movie, and they talk about the native forestry of Ireland and even the foundation of the Brehon laws in Ireland and how it relates to the forestry. Fascinating section. Now, Forest in a Box is a project that's mainly used by schools. Um, there's a bit of a school, and there's Andrews and Ledger kind of guiding some school children there. That must be quite recent because they got masks on. Oh, goodness me. And it's also with community groups thinking about building up a neighborhood from scratch, and they might not know anything about tree planting. This is a good way to start. This is our own miniature nursery for the woodland, the small woodland that's about to get started. Um, so as you can see, this starts with a wooden box, and it's got quite high sides there. And you can see the high sides. And the participants, usually children, they collect up forest floor material. They place it in that box there, like I think that's what they're doing there. And this is there's actually mesh on the bottom of that because that stops buggies and things coming up and eating the seeds that are being sown. Now the children they actually collect the seeds from local native woodland. So what they're going to plant is truly native. It's they're going to have trees from seeds that are within a couple of kilometers where they live. So that's really the way to go. Keep it very local. Oak's popular for doing that because you can identify acorns and plant those. Hazel is another one. Order, you got those catkins. Beech, sycamore with the wings. Hawthorns might be on the ground, berries from last year, maybe some rowan, and even using dried up crab apples. All those, get all those seeds, mix them up, put them into the box, in with the forest materials that have been collected, put a lid on the box, and some more mesh placed on the top. That prevents beings entering from the top into the box. And with this, up to 200 seeds can go into one of these boxes, and they can sprout and grow plants in every box. And it's amazing. There's room for 200 seeds to sprout, and then you can plant them out into pots, and you can pull them out as bare roots later on, just like you do with any nursery. So you've actually got a nursery of new plants that you've collected within a couple of kilometers where you live, and you're going to start up your own school woodland. You're going to start up your own garden sanctuary. You're going to start your neighborhood, all from that box, and it's going to turn into a woodland. Even this tree labyrinth here, which is a quarter of an acre, that could have been supplied by one and a half of those boxes, the two boxes would have done the whole thing here in one go. So eventually, these plants they're planted out into the new woodland, and this is going to be the main feature that I'm going to talk about with woodland sanctuaries next Sunday. Or you can use those plants to replace dead trees in existing woodlands in your neighborhood and covering blank spaces as well. Now the box sides there, let's go back to the box sides. Uh, those, that's not a very good one, is it? Let's try this one. Those box sides there, they act like a shelter, just like the woodlands. They've got other trees sheltering, and it also forces the trees to compete for the light. Now, the cost of one of these boxes is about €500, which sounds like a lot of money, but that covers the materials and the tuition. Woodland League send a teacher who will drive to anywhere in Ireland to show you how to get your box going, assembling it, and be with you to gather seeds. So you really get a lot of consultancy help, and you're not left on your own because from that one visit. It's an ongoing consultancy. It's just a €500 flat fee. Hopefully, I will have Andrew on to explain that more. But there's various fund. If you're worried about the €500, this is Ireland. There's various fundraising ideas. Just message me and I'll talk about it. Now, a lot of you here watching from the UK, watching from London, watching from the USA. I hope that you could inspire that idea. It's quite easy to put together a small replica of that, get small raised beds, tall. You get the idea. It's something you can put together yourself if it works for you and your home sanctuary. Maybe it's something you can do for your neighborhood and nearby. Help teachers, school children, $500. That's very reasonable for your time, labor, because there is a lot to do that. And of course, if you've got profit from that, you can help various other tree projects. It just keeps evolving itself. As I say, I'll get Andrew to talk about this as soon as possible, maybe next Sunday or the Sunday after. So, what are you saying at the moment? Romania, yeah, there's an inspiration there. Some use two men-handed screws to dig the hole. Yeah, there's various. I didn't go into the various tools. People have been talking about that. And the other thing I didn't demonstrate, if there'd been audio, was what comparing with the fuss that I was doing there, digging a hole, putting the compost in. Now, if you're doing forestry work and you got whips, you're not going to plant 1,000 trees like that. The two things I've done on mass forestry is cut a V notch and draw it back with a spade, put your plant in, put the V notch back, maybe a bit of compost or something, bang with your foot, and the tree will look after itself. You won't get many dead ones from that. The important thing is don't forestry plantations are in a row, aren't they? Avoid the row. Try to make them more scattered, more natural through doing that. And some people they zip along and they just do a single cut and pull that back and put the tree in. That will work and just boot that in. Some people do that. But this is commercial forestry. It's when you go big woodland. My main focus today is what you do in your garden, what you do in your own personal sanctuary. So I haven't used fancy tools. But thanks for bringing that up because Romania is a huge tree country and very important. And I love that you brought that one up. Thank you very much there. And who was that, by the way? Oh, lovely. That's Alex Brawl. That's coming from Twitch. Thank you very much. That's the first Twitch comment I've had that's not spammy. So we're moving on Twitch. So lovely. Thank you. I'm so pleased to get that one through. So there you have it. Um, and then how old to get this up? Oh, I would say really 10 years. Yeah, you could try after 5, but wait until your birch. How can there's the camera? Wait until your birch trunk's at least that thickness, and that's often 10 years. Um, right, and I'm going into overtime now, aren't I? Anyway, what else have I got? There was something Trees for Life. I wanted to mention, and I haven't had time to put it in. Look for treesforlife.com. I think I might take it this on treesforlife.com. They've been going for 20 years. Right, they've been 25 years. Wonderful. They're in Scotland. Um, and yeah, and they've been rewilding huge parts of the Scottish Highland. And I'm sorry I haven't got the photos, but their work includes planting native trees, improving habitats to increase wildlife. And the main project, and I would have, I wish I'd got the photos. Maybe I'll add them next week. But they've been restoring the Caledonian forest, and that was a monstrous forest that stretched from Ullapool right up in the north of Scotland, up in beyond Ross, up Sutherland, and it stretched all the way down the west, all the way down to Loch Lomond. And you cannot go and plant your trees with Trees for Life, but you can donate to them. You can volunteer once the COVID's out of the way, although I think they've got distancing going on, and even go on their rewilding apprenticeships. Uh, Now, I'd like to, I think that's all I is to say over an hour. Please ask me some more questions, and I will, before I finish off here, say what's coming up. What questions have you got? I'm going to be looking at these, your questions, question and answer time for the next few minutes. I trust you've enjoyed this sort of hacky sort of tree planting tip so far this afternoon. But it is really over to you now. Ask questions, anything that's been talked about. And sorry, I haven't got any tree related poetry, tree planting related poetry. Time's getting on, so I'll move on. Uh, uh, Talk about tree planting, little or large, whatever you're doing. And so I look forward to stories from your beautiful living sanctuary of trees and biodiversity. Now, these are Karakurian Sunday sessions. As I say, they brought to you by the Patreon subscribers. Thank you for that. Uh, Now, coming up on the Sunday sessions, have I got pictures? I hope I got pictures for this. Next week, as I say, is the Tree Sanctuary Creation, Labyrinth Gardens and Tree Sanctuary Creation. And I got a picture of Claire. This is the tree labyrinth here. I've showed you this last week. This is as it was in the early stages. You might see a few of the little uh, bare rooted. This was not long after the bare rooted plants were in. Claire's doing a bit of weeding there. And just behind Claire's head is where I'm sitting now, which is the willow cairn. And so this was 13 years ago. And that's how that was. So maybe you'll be starting off with something like that next week. Maybe you got something, we'll talk about that. Labyrinth Gardens and Tree Sanctuary Creation next week, 14th of March. And then the following week, it's our first birthday of the Karakori Sunday sessions online. And do you know, one thing I forgot to mention. Today is the 50th edition of Karakori Sunday sessions. So today's the 50th. So we've had 50 of them. Anyway, probably maybe one of the most memorable. We'll see. But on the in 2 Sundays' time, it's the birthday of Sunday sessions online, and we'll go back to where we started on the 21st of March. It's going to be Us and Trees, and there's the. I'm going to have to update that website. Us and Trees. What can we do? So there's going to be a lot of continuation from today, a lot of continuation from Tree Sanctuary that we'll be covering next week. So we'll really be tying it up quite well during 2 weeks' time on our first anniversary, first birthday. I haven't got any pictures for the one after that. On the 28th of March, it's going to be well back into the folklore. We've already got guests set up for that as well. And that's the title is Trees in Water Folklore. So that will be all that we've done with the practicals with the trees over the next couple of weeks. Bring that back into the folklore, into our psyche and our own passion and our own connection. That's going to be Trees in Water Folklore, 28th of March. And then through April and May, it's right into the she folklore again, especially in relation to our new spring and early summer gardens. We'll be right into the gardening in April and May. Most of the frost will be gone. The days will be averaging well over 10 to 15 degrees, 50 to into the 60s Fahrenheit here, which of course a lot of you watching will be into the 90s by then. But anyway, there's going to be that folklore and uh, and how it's affecting us and how we're using it. So let's see a few more comments. Have you asked any more questions? Questions and answers still open for that. So let's see what you got. In cake next week. Who's going to send the cake then? I can imagine if I did cake, if it's been like putting this Sunday session together, I can imagine what the cake might look like. We'd have to have a pretend cake. And Elizabeth, thank you for this. Sorry I didn't have the photos and videos this time. Um, so it just was me and even me with a bit of mine without sound. But that's the way it goes with this, of course. And it's still been a huge pleasure. Thank you for joining as well and all those comments. Um, so it's back to guests, pictures and videos over the next 3 Sundays at least. Keep commenting here if you're watching this as the archive later on. Some of you will come out of the garden and watch this during the evening. Some of the Southern Hemisphere people will be watching through our night. So thank you all and keep commenting. Enjoy the subscribe. There's bell icons on YouTube and I think Facebook, and that'll click those and you'll be reminded of details of each Sunday session coming up. So what I will say to you now, of course, as I always do, and I'm always reluctant to say my farewells to you, but enjoy a safe week full of wonder, inspirations, and enchantment. I feel a few drips of rain coming earlier because it's supposed to be showery tonight. So until next Sunday, play well. That's it from me, and bye bye.